Before the NFL would come to Seattle, it needed a building large enough to house it. Construction on the Kingdome started in 1972, and in '74, the league granted the franchise to a group of Seattle businessmen, with the Nordstrom family as the majority stockholders. Next, they had to pick a name. A contest was held that received over 20,000 entries, with over 1,700 different suggestions. Narrowed down to 7, they were the Cascades, Evergreens, Mariners, Olympics, Pioneers, Sockeyes, and the Seahawks. Armed with only a name, but no coach or players, the team sold 24,000 tickets the first day, and a short time later, all 59,000 were gone. Next came the coach. Management wanted someone from a winning organization who would have the patience to handle a young team. One name kept coming up: Jack Patera. Finally, it was time to build the team. The second overall pick is the man who's had 3 acts with the Seahawks: player, analyst, and since 2004, the voice of the Seahawks, Steve Raible.
Leo Williams is going to take it in for a touchdown! Seahawks!
Who's also celebrating 50 seasons in Seattle. It was a start to remember.
There was nothing to gauge it by. There was nobody to talk to say, how is training camp going to go? What's the season going to be like? I had no idea what the schedule was. I mean, we didn't know anything about anything.
The first pick in team history was Notre Dame defensive tackle Steve Niehaus. Other draftees that first year included linebacker Sammy Green, running back Sherman Smith, and the man who would become the backbone of the defense, Mike Curtis. The roster also included a cast-off from the Cowboys, quarterback Jim Zorn.
At the start, it was going to be pretty exciting because we've got to develop our own traditions. There was no legend of anything there, so we got to create some of these things.
The battle for starting job under center lasted all of training camp, a time that was particularly interesting under Patera.
Big guy, loud, tough. Most people thought he didn't smile very much, but he did. Didn't allow water on the football field during practice.
It'd be 105 degrees or 100 degrees, and I remember Mike Curtis was a linebacker that we had gotten in the expansion draft from, at that time, the Baltimore Colts. And he called up the league office to see if we had to practice because it was so hot and we didn't have water. And they just sort of said, yes, you do. There is no rule there, you know.
Once the season started, the Hawks gave up some lopsided scores, but they also scared some teams to death with their passing game. On one side, Zorn had veteran receiver Sam McCullum to work with. On the other, a guy who arrived via a last-second trade by the name of Steve Largent, who amazed defenders with his ability to get open and catch the ball.
Everybody talks about great hands, yeah. Run great routes, yes. One of the hardest working, most talented, most humble, most self-directed people I've ever known.
We worked. We spent time before the practices, we spent time after practices, just trying to hone up all the nuances of running a pass route and throwing the football.
He just caught everything that he could touch, and probably caught a lot of balls that he shouldn't have caught, you know.
Still, the Seahawks were 0-5 when they arrived in Tampa for what was called the Expansion Bowl. Seattle had its way with the Bucs in the first half, running and passing at will. Tampa Bay made a comeback of sorts. In the end, it came down to a last-second field goal attempt. Mike Curtis was there when he was needed. The Hawks had their first victory and were ready for another. That chance came a few weeks later in the Kingdome, when Seattle caught the Falcons by surprise. The Seahawks' high-powered offense proved too much for Atlanta. It was a decisive victory and the last of the season.
Jack really did a great job of elevating the Seahawks in year one to a level that hadn't been seen by any franchises that were just coming into the league.
The Seahawks finished the inaugural campaign at 2-12. It didn't matter to the fans, who rocked the Dome.
It was a great place to play. Now, I guess if you were up in the stands and you had to use one of the too few restrooms that were in the Kingdome, then it might have been a little tough on you. But it was a great home field advantage for us.
We used to just park out in the parking lot with the fans and walk in with the fans. Drove to the game every home game. Steve and I would get out. We had a little parking spot, and the fans would go, "Hey, have a great game." Well, "Hey, thank you." You know, we'd walk in and get our stuff on and go play.
The fans appreciated what we were doing and trying to put a marker down for having an NFL team in the Northwest. And I can't say enough about the appreciation that I have for the great fans in Northwest.
The Seahawks improved in 1977, going 5-9, then 9-7 in 1978. Jim Zorn threw for over 3,000 yards, but Seattle fell just short of the playoffs. Jack Patera named the NFL Coach of the Year.
See, I think a successful coach has imagination. I mean, you have to have imagination.
Another 9-7 campaign in '79, a season that featured one of the most famous plays in Seahawks history.
Field goal, team. Field goal.
It began as a 55-yard field goal attempt by Efren Herrera, with Jim Zorn holding.
They had nobody in the middle. So we said, well, why not set Efren up the middle? Because there's no one there. And Jim just stood up and threw him the ball.
And I just hit Efren, and he was wide open. You know, I was just hoping he'd catch it. I didn't throw it hard.
Herrera got the first down, and 3 plays later, Dan Dornick put the Seahawks up for good. Seattle won 5 of 6 to end the season. Encouraging, yes, but again, no playoffs.
Very annoying. You don't realize how close you are until you see the playoffs come about. You care so much about that. It kind of haunts you when you think about it every once in a while. It really does.
In 1980, an act of God covered the state of Washington in ash, and Cheney was no exception. The Hawks training camp site was cleaned up enough to hold camp, but Mount St. Helens eruption was a harbinger of what was to come. The Seahawks went backwards, finishing 4-12, losing every game at the Kingdome. The silver lining? Drafting defensive tackle Jacob Green.
The first meeting with Jack, he said, "Jacob, they said we needed a pass rusher, and so you're the guy, and that's what we needed to win." Coming to Seattle was quite the experience.
The 80s started slow, and it brought about a new era of Seahawks football with the arrival of Ground Chuck.
We will demand and expect the very, very best that all our football players have. We want to play Seahawks football. We want to play with a lot of pride, a lot of commitment. And that I think we will have.